Hello and welcome to another episode of Sustainability Leads, where we bring you insightful conversations with business leaders on everything sustainability. I'm very excited today to introduce our guest, Ms. Mpumi Maesela, who is the CEO of SE Holdings. Welcome, Mpumi.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Yes, so thank you so much for joining us today. And just to start us off, I'd like you to tell us who you are, let it come from you, what your journey has been, how you've gotten to be the CEO of SE Holdings.
Yeah, do we have enough time to do this? So it's a very difficult question when people are asked who they are, because it goes to the core of our own existence. So I am a farmer, which is what I guess identify myself to be now, but I grew up as a head girl in the rural mountains of Eastern Cape, and growing up as a head girl with two other sisters. My dad was like, okay, we don't have a boy in this household, we will have a kwetini. So I helped with everything that would normally be an assignment that would be given to a boy. And so that shaped my discipline, because first thing in the morning I have to take out the kettle before I go to school, and when I come back from school I have to find all the sheep. As you know, sheep go everywhere. So yeah, so it was very interesting upbringing. Fast forward, I worked, I studied commerce, so that's what I've studied, and I worked for WDB, which is a women's development bank, and I think that's really where my conscience around women development and rural development was inspired the most. So working there, I worked at the investment holding side of the business, and they have a very big developmental agenda for women, and in particular women in the rural areas. And in 2008, we got hit globally. We had a Lehman Brothers global meltdown, and at that time we said, what can we do to support our communities? And I remember being asked, like, put up a concept, and I was like, we can't do something whereby it's not going to be sustainable. We need to understand how do we support these rural women such that whatever intervention we're doing is not a food parcel. So that's really where we set up the Agri Fund. It was an SME fund. We called it that because we wanted to focus on renewable energy, waste, and manufacturing. But all these industries are big in their own rights, and so we had to zoom in on one sector, which was agriculture. As you can imagine, agriculture is so big and multifaceted. And so we went around the country in all rural communities, checking what rural women are doing. And we found that actually they are very engaged in agricultural activities, but they lack markets, they lack technical support, they lack funding. And so we then created a fund that resolved their challenges. Fast forward, come to 2012, we have drought. So WDB decides, you know what, this is too risky of a sector. We would like to focus more on private equity investments, etc. And so I had a 2-year transition period where I had to close out the fund. We did not lose funds. Thank God, we basically were able to return back 98% of our funds that were invested with the farmers was back with WDB. Also, the farmers were sustainable to some extent. They had the market, they had the infrastructure. We solved for the non-negotiables that I continue to talk about. So 2014, we set up SE Holdings. And it's a weird one because SE Holdings, when we started, we were like strategists. That's what I've studied.
How many were you?
It was just me and me. And I.
So you did start SE Holdings.
Yes. So, but it's always we, yeah. When in 2014, we got a very unusual opportunity to consult with the Japanese government. And they were looking at the women in professional jobs as well as entrepreneurship, saying that their challenge is women, when they make babies, they stop business. Whether you're a medical doctor, whether they are a CA, whatever profession, the minute they have a baby, they put 150% effort to raising their child. And so the government is struggling with that. And so can we come and talk about how we are able to work with small babies? And it came at I had a small baby, so I had to travel with my son and basically show them how it's done and explain to them how the challenges of basically moving around with the child and experience that. Then coming back to South Africa, our first client was SPAR, who really took, I guess, a point of faith to say, we'll give you an opportunity to work with us. And we were solving for rural development for their hubs. Basically, they have 500, at the time, they had over 500 stores across the country, and they wanted to see how they can have fresh produce at the stores, because bringing fresh produce all from DC to all the regional stores and rural stores, by the time it reaches the store, it's bruised, it's not so fresh, etc. So we worked with SPAR to develop rural farmers and source locally, hence my SPAR, my community. So you'd have seen that tagline. It basically has been running for 10 years. They won awards at the back of this. We had partners. We collaborated a lot because we were small. We were still very small business. I think we were like 5 at that time. And so, having a client like SPAR was like really a good platform for SE to get known, but also for SPAR to be recognized for that impact. The rest was history.
Okay.
Then everybody else wanted to know, how can we work with them? Can we also do the same thing? And we had to then see how we build the business to where it is.
Awesome, that's really a great story. I'm curious though. So are you starting the business before the SPAR deal, or it starts you off?
No,
what comes first? Yeah.
So I already had the business before the SPAR deal. We almost like someone needed to just trust us that we can do the work. And remember, I had already run an agri-fund. So I knew everyone in the food and beverage sector. We had met them whilst I was a fund manager. But it's very different when you start your business, because then it's like, what's your track record? Fill up this form. It doesn't get any traction. So how SPAR gave us a chance, one of the head of procurement at SPAR was at Tiger Brands at some point, and Tiger Brands had given us an opportunity whilst I was at WDP. So they knew us, you see, relationships. Yes. So that's how it was like, okay, you need to consider them. They'll be really good. They might be small, they will grow. And that's how really we got that first client, and then all the other clients that came after SPAR, it's very much referral. Like people want to know, do you know what you're doing? And they want to hear from you. Like you can say, everybody can say, I'm good at this. but they want to hear from her, like, and if she's buying, are you buying it? Is it good? And only then people are like, okay, we'll also give it a try.
That's great. So at the heart of SE Holdings is a real sustainability opportunity or challenge, depending on how you look at it. There's fertile land sitting unused. Somewhere community is lacking. Maybe the resources, whether it's financial or support to really commercially or get value out of the land. So when you're building SE Holdings, are you solving a social impact issue? What is it that is driving you? And then how do you, I know that you already said SPA gave you the funding, but typically how do you drive that? How do you take this opportunity and use it to attract investors, attract partners? For someone listening out there, how do you do that?
It's a very good question, but a very easy one, because firstly, food or agriculture is the oldest trade for humanity, one. Two, it will continue to grow for as long as humanity continue to grow. Three, food is so emotional. Like if I ask you, what do you enjoy eating? Like your eyes sparkle. You just start thinking, is it Italian? Is it Japanese? Is it African? Like we have such an emotional connection with food. And it gives me so much joy. Initially, it was just like seeing stuff grow and seeing how when everything is underground, the faith that you have to have, the weight you have to have, the patience and the time that it takes, it's quick and fast. And when it gets to the point where you are now harvesting and you see your product nourishing other people. So for me, it's been just like, this is a mine that can never run out. Like mining companies, they extract resources. The resources, they deplete them. Yeah. Agriculture, when you do it properly, like we're trying to do it, you can extract from the soil for generations to come. You can have food for all forever, and that's really what's driving us. That's our vision, and so that's really what I guess drives what we do, and that connects everybody. If I get to the room and people are like, what are we talking about? I'm like, did you guys have breakfast? Did you thank a farmer? How often do you see your doctor? Yeah. How often do you meet a farmer? 3 times a day. How often do you see your lawyer when you're in trouble? But you don't need to be in trouble to eat. It is human need and survival to have the food. And so it is such an important and such an undermined sector, especially for the lower end of our society impact and what drives me. So you see a lot of extractiveness of value from farmers and not giving back and creating value for farmers. And so we said to ourselves, we want to participate in this sector. We understand the emotion of it. We want to make it sexy for young people. We're bringing technology to it, but also we want the farmers to really feel good about it. We want the young people, when they think of a farmer, they must look at me. I'm the farmer. Yeah. They mustn't imagine a farmer being a woman missing tooth with dirty nails, because that's the picture we see. And when we close our eyes and we think of a doctor, we see a beautiful girl with a white coat, cleanly manicured. And that's the narrative we all need to change to create the impact that we want to see.
So social impact is important, but you're in business. Mm-hmm. You need to make money. You need to scale your business. Earlier on, before we got here, we were talking about the challenges for farmers, especially this drastic unpredictable weather patterns, right? How do you scale a business of this nature?
It's hard, especially for farmers that are first, second, third generation farmers, because they generally are not owning the land and they can't have resources. So we have defined a 30-point tool that defines what are the things required for the farmer to thrive. And so when you solve for those things, we've seen and we've demonstrated that it gives a farmer a fighting chance, even with all these challenges that we've spoken about. If a farmer is off the grid, has solar, if a farmer has a borehole and has a reservoir for the water, if the farmer's farm is fenced and they get hit by a storm, they can plant again because they've got the basic infrastructure that makes that farm basically gives it a fighting chance to restart. And farming is very interesting. It's like running a marathon. We all start at the beginning of the season. We are like on your marks, all of us. Whether you have planted 10 years, whether I'm planting for the first time, or whatever your situation is. The only reality that we're solving for and the challenge that you are alluding to is most of our black farmers, we are going to America, imagine it. America is the harvest. We all bought OR Tambo, but our farmers are going to run by foot whilst the other farmers get on the plane, because they've got the systems, they already predicted some of these challenges, they've got technology, they have the resources so they can bounce back quicker if they are hit. And so we are very clear that sometimes even when we start the race, we are almost everything is against all odds for our farmers. And that's why then it's so important for us to solve for these challenges, to say, okay, they can't board the plane. Can they get into a car? Can we get a bicycle for them to move from one point to another? And God willing, they will be on the plane one day and they would be sustainable and be able to bounce back and be able to plant again and again and again. If it's crops, if their entire animals are wiped out, they are able to just have 2 very bad seasons and be able to come back and buy as many animals to start them.
Do small farmers get support typically in South Africa? Who supports small farmers?
It's very hard and difficult question, but everyone says they support farmers. There's a lot of support out there, but the support is not for farmer. The support is selfish to tick your box that I've supported a farmer. Very few people are truly, very few people are truly supporting the farmers. Because if you truly support the farmer, you won't just give them production funding. You won't be like, oh no, this is what I can give you, this is what I can't give you that. You look at all their needs, say, this is how I am supporting you. It's not support if you need to go somewhere and I give you a lift. And then you feel this artificial success of a season, and the next season you are back to square one because you don't have the tools to make sure that you are continuously doing the trade. DFIs, across all DFIs, they are open for business. Everyone. So
this is your DBSA?
Everyone, yeah. Your Jobs Fund,
okay.
Your CIFA, IDC, NEF, everyone is open for business. There is funding for farmers. The farmers cannot put together bankable business plans for the DFIs to bank. DFIs are actually banking institutions. They are developmental financing institutions, which means they need to preserve, protect, and ensure that the funds they give you, you are able to return them back to them. And it's blended, so it's grants and loans, but at the end of the day, you still need to return the money. And so there is support for farmers, but farmers are, one, not ready to receive the support because you need to have so much compliance in place to be funded. And there are things that I call non-negotiables that funders will need you to have for them to fund you.
What are these?
So EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment, water use licenses, a solid lease if you are leasing the land, a title deed if you are owning. But like, you need to be clear, you need to be credit worthy as well. So if you are not credit worthy, demonstrate that you are able to put plans in place to clear your name from debtors. And you also need to have good references. People must know that this is your product, this is a good product, and they would love to buy from you. So with all of those needs, it becomes very difficult because farmers just want to plant. And they just want funding to plant to take to market. They are not thinking all the food safety requirements that the off-taker requires, because for them, they need the safest product to take to the end user, because otherwise they can find themselves in lawsuits where the product was not good, and now they're finding themselves in a pickle because they sourced from maybe an untraceable farmer or something like this.
Yeah, but also in terms of collateral, what do they give? We were talking about seasons. Seasons are so different. So if you're relying on as a farmer, as a small farmer, you're relying on your produce to honor your debt commitments. How does that even work out consistently?
Yes, so the Land Bank has introduced a 5-year a continuum of funding, and it's blended. And so what we've seen, the farmers that we've been able to submit through the corporates that we work with, because I don't want the listeners to think they can come and apply directly to SE. Through the corporates that we work with, we are able to raise funds for them through the likes of Land Bank or CIFA or NEF. The uniqueness of Land Bank is they look at you give you a 5-year view. Okay. So you don't need to apply every year. If you plant and you don't have a good season and you are honest and you report on time, you will be funded again, and you'll be funded again. If you plant and you have a bad season and you don't communicate and you were presenting as if your crop is fine, but it was not fine already from day 18, and now we are in day 60, then of course that you have challenges to be able to do that. They will need to look at how else they can recover their funds. So I think more and more we are seeing DFIs trying to understand the nature of farming and smallholder farmers and the challenges of them, and raising their hand to say they will try and solve as much of the inequality of the agri space as possible. But the skill remains the biggest gap, because farming is science, So the science of farming and the economics of farming, it's what fails most farmers, because they understand how to farm, but they don't have the science behind it. And so the people that have the science behind it are the ones that are able to then turn around quicker to be able to show the margins and grow their businesses.
Yes, okay. And I know you've touched on it a little bit already earlier, but the big issue of market access for emerging farmers, that is a problem for most. You had your own turning point from the SPAR group, but what does it take for a small black emerging farmer to be taken seriously by a supplier? How do they access?
Quality.
The market's quality.
Okay. Quality. You can have a very small plot, you produce the best tomato in that community, everybody will know about it. Now, I'm not even talking formal markets. I'm talking about just the cleanliness of your farm and how you are taking your crop seriously. Quality, quality, quality. Of course, it gets a bit technical if you want to supply a formal market, because there's a specification and we test for sugars, for bricks, for this, for that, for that. So there's a specification that you are able to be checked against, and we both could have the same tomato, and your tomato gets rejected and mine gets accepted because it's got enough bricks. I've used the right chemicals on it, so we have to check how much chemicals are in there. We have to check. But for the local community, they don't necessarily know about unauthorized chemicals vis-a-vis what's good, you can't know, things like that. So if it looks good and it's coming out of a clean field, chances are people who want to buy it from you, like really fast. So you will never have a produce market problem in the community. So we always tell our farmers that they need to focus on that. If you are looking after chickens, biosecurity, you need to make sure that your area where you are keeping your chickens, you are not letting a lot of people there. And you know how we are. We want to show you my chickens. Come see my chickens. No. So we teach them, like, please keep that space away from people, because you are protecting the chickens, and ensure that when you're coming in, you have disinfected your shoes, etc. And small things like that, where now you have a healthy chicken and you have healthy 1,000 chicken. If you have one healthy chicken and the others are not looking so great, even if I was coming to buy one, I might turn back because I'm just like, why are those chickens looking sick? You know, so it's very important to whichever commodity you are doing, that you focus on the healthiness of it, and you focus on the cleanliness of the environment. And of course, when you then want to do formal markets, you then understand the specification and how to achieve it, because there are ways to achieve the specification.
Talking about, chemicals, and it's an issue I want us to just spotlight a little bit. Chemicals that are used by farmers. Yesterday there was an article, and it's from a European country, I think from the Netherlands, saying that their key supermarkets have done some tests and found that there are unacceptable amounts of chemicals in the fresh produce. And I think there was specifically, they singled out some herbs or the spices that we use in food. The interesting thing about the case is that they're saying these chemicals are not allowed in the EU, even though the EU produces them and then they're used in other countries. So I think it comes to the level of responsibility, and what I'm asking is, how do farmers get to understand, and who is responsible for this, the use of chemicals, the allowed quantities on fresh produce?
It's a very good question. So the entire industry, we are supposed to be responsible for it, because the region, Africa, maybe South Africa being an exception, but broadly in the region, what tends to happen is that we produce, it goes to Europe, it gets processed, it comes back. We are slowly waking up to a localization strategy where we want to be able to be decision makers around what level of chemicals goes to what dried fruits, dried spices, dried commodities. And even at farm level, I think South Africa is at one of the top countries in terms of adherence to protection of the environment, and also safeguarding the food in terms of quality of food that goes into our shops. Yes, there would be exposure to the chemicals to have basically elongate the shelf life of the fruit or the vegetable, which is why when you buy something, it will say rinse well, or it will say something like rinse before eat. You know, so those instructions, we need to adhere to them, because a lot of these chemicals are, when we pack the produce, it runs through a stop-it, which is one of the chemicals, which then stops the whatever commodity from decaying quickly and basically molding. And so when you take it from the shelf to your mouth, you are ingesting some of chemicals which are actually not good for you. So you do need to rinse everything that is written rinse well. If it's not written rinse, please still rinse, because it's just good practice, because it's been handled by other humans. It's been handled. And you know how we are. We always rinsing things to give to a child. So even to yourself, we need to have that courtesy of care to ourselves as well, to rinse our food before using.
Yeah, I would imagine that is also a deep regulatory issue that needs monitoring, because it's scary to think about food and chemicals and unregulated practices. But it was interesting to see that coming from the EU. Going back to the business of farming, or the business of small business, right? The banks will tell you, the finances will tell you that up to 80%, maybe sometimes even more than 80% of the funding that they give to businesses, up to 80% of those businesses may fail, right? And from your perspective on the ground, what are we getting wrong? I don't know if it's the system or the SMEs themselves. Why do small businesses fail, and what needs to be done differently from both sides?
So already when a small business walks into an institution that has a statistic that says 80% of you fail, what's the confidence level of the person that is receiving you? It's very low. Imagine if we had a statistics that said 12-month-old babies statistically don't walk at 12 months. They don't walk. They will be just like, they are not walking. We don't encourage the kids to walk. Because the statistics breeds a behavior which breeds a pattern which confirms the statistic. So the only way is we need to build confidence in the small businesses that we support, without sugarcoating and telling someone who doesn't have produce that they will do well, but also being very clear and categorize. Some people are ready for funding in terms of loans. Some people you need to blend, and this is where our tool is going to be so revolutionary, because we've been able to define categories of farmers, and we are able to say to the DFIs, these farmers look similar, but this one needs 90% grant, 10% loan, and these are the reasons. And we've backed that up with a risk matrix that calculates the level of risk that you as a DFI are exposing yourself into. The challenge is that it's almost like funding an SMME, it's a black hole, like everyone just not sure what could go wrong. So everyone walking in there thinking we need to give a Panado, we need to give Strepsils, so they're thinking of all these protections that they need to apply to try and reduce their level of exposure and risk, without trying to understand that SMME to say, okay, actually you have an ulcer problem. So giving you a Panadol and giving you a Strepsil is not going to assist in your situation. The businesses are also underfunded, and I've experienced it personally. I've gone to all the DFIs, except for one that is actually considering to not underfund us, but everybody else have underfunded us.
So what you ask, you don't get what you ask for?
No, you come through and you say, I need 50 million. And they're like, no, we'll give you 30. Or, oh, I need 100 million. They're like, no, we'll give you 65. You're like, how did you calculate that? Like, it's based on what? So there is, of course, the region, also how we fund against an asset-based, it's an asset-based type funding. Whereas if you go to the US, people will find you at the back of your opportunity. Here, I can have a very big opportunity, which we have as SE Holdings. We've got a huge market that we could unlock, but funders need to see how much asset do you have for us to lend you against. Yes. So if you come in and you need huge amounts of money, but your asset base, you've never handled that, of course they need to come to a level where they think it manage risk. But the converse of that is that then you're not getting enough. Imagine you went to a shop and you wanted to buy a dress, and they said, oh, we've checked your balance, you can't afford a dress, we'll just give you the top part. Now you have to work with the top part of the dress for the next 3 years. It's very visually as a business, but also I'm like, need you to see it like it is as that bad, because you can now see like this is a gap that I needed filled up, but now somebody wants to support me. And most SMEs will still take half a top. Not all funding is good funding. So that's definitely not good funding because you are exposed. You don't have a full dress that you needed. Like we always demonstrate to funders like that, at least they can see. We're like, oh no, but this was going to get us a full dress. You're just giving us arms.
But why is that funding model big on assets and not on opportunities? Yes.
They need to protect the capital. If you go back to 2008, when we got hit globally, South Africa was hit, but we had the most strongest protected banking system. And because we are, as a country, so strict on assessing risk, managing risk, pricing risk, pricing risk. The risk in South Africa is priced so much that you could be asking for R1 and the price of that R1 is R1.20 over time. If you start calculating how much did it cost me to actually get this funding. So there's a skewness on, and this affects, sadly enough, the smaller you are, the more you are looked at, which means the more requirements you will have, and the bigger you are, the less. So bigger business get very good funding terms, and as small business, we basically have to, even our dogs are part of the session, everything that we have in our homes. To spoon, whatever you bought, it's part of the session. They want to have everything.
Yeah, so I think it's clear maybe on what the funders need maybe to do differently, especially even in terms of risk. But on what is it the emerging farmers would do to overcome these funding gaps?
They need to take themselves seriously. And they need to stop the pettiness mentality. We had a visit with Land Bank to the farmers, and we've learned that the farmers that are actually doing the work, getting the work done, they are getting supported. So farmers need to take themselves seriously. They need to show up, and we also need to stop making farming a lifestyle project. You know, we get a lot of our friends who are doctors, accountants. I'm not saying professionals should not be farmers. Like they're like, oh, I'm going to retire, so I'm going to buy a farm. I'm just like, no. So farming is as serious as any other business and any other sector. We need to take it seriously. We need to be calculating the economics of it. When you start, when you end, what's the journey going to be? What could go wrong? How are you going to mitigate for those things that go wrong? Farmers do not conceptualize those things. They just like hope and pray, which is good. But hope and pray and plan, that's what you need, and measure and be able to go, okay, from the risk beyond this is not worth it. We meet farmers that have been planting for 5, 7, 10 years that have never seen profits. They don't know how to achieve profits. And we just like work with them 2 seasons and they are turned around. So the economics of agriculture for farmers needs to be so on point, and they need to know how much are they spending for what and what they are expecting to get at the end, because that's the only time we also change the face of agriculture for young people. Otherwise, they just think like, no one makes money here.
At another forum, you indicated that SE Holdings is an aggregator. What does that mean?
So yeah, so we are a farmer and we're an aggregator now. For the longest of time, we were just an aggregator, and we were being asked a lot, like, do you have a farm? Do you have a farm? Oh, now we can answer it in short. Yes, we have a farm. So being an aggregator basically means we go out to big food, beverage, pharmaceutical, and pharmaceutical companies. We negotiate off-takes with them, and they give us the specifications. So we've engaged all the big guys, with your Liver, ATT, Woolworths, etc., all of them, and they then will say, we would like you to supply us with these volumes of these commodities. And these are huge commodities in tonnages that they're looking from us. So then we then go to our corporate partners, which are mainly the mines, because the mines, like I've said before also, they have a real problem, a real social problem. They can never remove themselves from the business of where the mine is. Whereas if you run a technology business and the community is giving you problems, you can just shut your business and move it to somewhere else. The mine can't shut because the resource is underground. So we love that they present a real challenge for us to solve alongside them. So we work with the mines to say, you've got this vast land that could assist in creating a secondary economy to reduce pressure on jobs for the mine, but also feeding and greening the economy. So being able to produce the food within the mine for the community, but also being able to send it for formal markets. But thirdly, really exciting the young people in and around the mine to say there are other opportunities beyond mining related opportunities. There's a lot of agri opportunities that exist that we present to the communities, and they are able to participate in those opportunities over time. So the aggregation, we're doing it very differently, because if you think about, say, for example, the Sugar Association or the grain industry, we are aggregating based on what is good to grow in that region. We don't aggregate beans only. We are known for small white beans because we've produced a lot of small white beans, but we plant everything. We do trees to bees, because for us, it's also saying, how do we ensure that we are greening the mine, we are contributing to their carbon, and we are looking after their soils. If they can't plant anything, are we putting bees to create a beautiful flora of biodiversity? So we bring in a colorful, I guess, secondary economy that just goes beyond food, that can excite young people in and around that mining community, or even a labor-sending community if it's an Eastern Cape, to say, you know, what else is possible beyond just looking at the mining. So that's the aggregation. We then also bring in, because we know most of our farmers cannot afford to have the machines to prepare their lands, to plant the fields, to harvest the fields. So we've then solved for that. As we find challenges, we solve for them. 2 seasons ago, we had too much rain, so now we had to buy drones. So we've got pilots at SE that fly these drones. When it's too much rain, we are able to spray the chemicals that we need to still keep our crops looking healthy. So that's the aggregation that we are bringing. It's not just to aggregate to take to market. We aggregate for a local development and inciting excitement within the community, without necessarily always bringing formal markets into the mix. So we've got other communities where we've not even brought formal markets because there was already a need. They don't have chickens. We're like, so you would become a hatcherer, you would become a day-old chicken, and you will sell too. So we create the value chain that starts supplying that community.
So I know you said that, I don't know if it was in 2012, I could be wrong, when you then set up SE... 2014, SE Holdings. You then had the SPAR deal. How much has SE Holdings grown? What do you look like right now as a small business, or are you already a big business?
No, we're not. We're not. Yeah. We are a small business. We are looking for support from big business. Our business has evolved. We've focused on the basics. We've focused on quality of service. We have a burden as a Black woman business. Our burden is not to be good. Our burden is to be the best that we can be. This is the burden we carry, and we love this burden because this burden has set us apart. And if all the small businesses out there took that to say, as a small business, to rise above all the other small businesses, my burden is to be the best at what I do. Not necessarily charitable in that manner, but be kind and listen to challenges and listen to problems that farmers present if you are in agri. Don't rush to give a solution. Understand, almost like love the problem enough to be able to unlock it, because we are so quick to solving a problem we don't fully understand. And this is a societal problem. All of us, we're like, oh, they're coughing, let's get a coughing mixture. No, maybe they just had something went to their throat. They don't even have flu. So we have learned that you don't just need to show up for yourself as a business, and this is the growth we've been able to build. Show up for everybody else. Even if, and I'm gonna say it, even if it feels like nobody cares, the farmer doesn't care that they do well because they know that you need the product to go wherever. The funder doesn't care that you fail, they just want their money back. The off-taker doesn't care what happened, they just want their produce. So if you are able to go with that mindset to say, despite I don't need them to care enough for me to do the stuff, I just need to be able to show that I care. And through that, you know, they say confidence breeds confidence. care breeds care. So when you care, over time, I'm telling you, this is long. It's like being in a submarine, care, holding air to come out. But if you care enough, one day someone will notice and they'll be like, you've been consistent in really trying to solve, and not bringing a solution. Trying to solve is understanding the problem. And a lot of people get frustrated with this approach. We've had corporates that will say to us, please quickly fix this for us. And we're like, no, we don't do that. And we've lost opportunities at the back of that, because for us it's like we need to sit with the community, understand what's the problem, and 99% of the time what they thought was the problem is not what the community tells us to be the problem. And so that has been the eye-opener, and the corporates that continue to entrust us to do the work love that about us, because we then save so much time, effort, conflict, and explanations, because we spend time to understand with everybody and almost craft a solution together. Don't bring a solution like people don't know how to solve their own problems as well. Say, how would you like to solve it? You can say, they haven't thought about this, that. Then slowly say, but so what about this? Don't you think this will also help? They're like, yeah, if that also would be possible. And through that, that's like they own it. And they also feel they have to look after it, because it's their solution that they've crafted together with us. All these white elephants you see across the country is because we go as development practitioners and we say, oh, they don't have this, let's do this for them. They never needed it. In fact, it won't work, because when later on we are called in, we're like, okay, let's go find out why they are not using it. They're like, no, we don't need it because of this and that. We're like, nobody engaged you. They're like, no, they just came and put it out there, so it's here now.
There's no co-creation with communities.
Yeah.
In agriculture or farming, sustainability must be at the core of that, at the center of that, whether it's in terms of farming practices, whether it's in terms of the products that you get out. The UN Global Compact is a corporate sustainability platform. SE Holdings has been part of the Global Compact for a while. What does it mean in practice for your company to be part of this community, and what tangible opportunities or doors as being in the Global Compact opened up for your company?
A lot. We've met a lot of people, and we continue to connect with the UNGC members. We met quite a few when we were in Cape Town, and some of them guys from Costa Rica, Nigeria. They continue to connect with us and seek support, guidance, exchange of ideas, how we've done it, how it could be done in their countries. So that networking is invaluable, because you learn so much differences around how they do it in their countries vis-a-vis us. But for me, why are we here, and why sustainability matters for us so much? I see the values that we want and we are embodying of building beyond sustainability. So sustainability, it's almost like you're sustaining the status quo. When I've engaged with the UNGC members, it's almost like we want to go beyond this sustainability. We want to see how we give it life, basically. And it's such an exciting thing to be part of, seeing, for example, the young people at SE Holdings that have participated literally on all the platforms and opportunities that the UNGC present. But for me also, it's seeing my team grow and show up and raise their hand to building this confidence around being part of the bigger discussions on the SDGs, to say, how do we meaningfully, measurably do the work that we do and attract good partners that continue to work with us. Partners are key to the work that we do, because you can't do farming in isolation. I don't know which industry you can do in isolation, but farming definitely not. Yeah, so and UNGC is so big on partnerships. And there we share almost like a card for life, because for us, we believe that all the societal issues, not just farming, all the societal issues that have been shared by the UNGC can only truly be understood, defined, and basically forge solutions that are sustainable through partnerships, because not one organization, not one institution or government department can be able to solve for the challenges that we have. And as we do that together, we create new problems, which is nice, because then of course we need to create new problems when we solve problems. If we solve one good problem, we will create 4 new problems, which become opportunities. And as we continue to solve for that, it's just a well of opportunities and collaboration and resolving that creates multifold of opportunities for society, for young people, for the entire ecosystem.
So what would your call to action be out there to companies not in this wonderful community for learning, for networking, and for sustainability? What would you tell even other SMEs out there?
I mean, they must visit the website. It's an investment. It's almost like, and I always say to people that will say to me, why were you getting audited when you were making 100,000 rands? And I said to them, I was getting audited because I wanted to know where I need to improve. And UNGC presents that space. You are not auditing us, thank God, but it presents a space where you are able to learn from other members how to improve your own business. We volunteered to participate last year on the assessment, and we learned so much through that process. It was a 2-day process. It was lovely. We took time, we debated the questions, and we wrote a lot of things down to say, okay, we're not doing that. Maybe we should start doing that. We're not doing that. Maybe we are not ready for that. You know, so it gets you as a young business ready for growth. Basically, that's what UNGC has done to us in terms of, I don't want to say governance, because you do so much more than just governance. So we looked at governance, because there was a lot of governance questions. We looked at gender equity, which we've implemented, by the way, wonderfully. So I was already gender biased. I've been almost all my career. I always say this openly. I am biased towards women. They are better farmers, believe it. They are better farmers. They are better nurturers. And when you empower women, you empower a village. This is known worldwide. So we were already biased, but agriculture is so difficult to embody this gender biasness in terms of even skills and technical ability of the team that you bring. So we've had to work really, really hard to be majority women in the business, to be able to walk the talk that I talk all the time, to say I'm gender biased. They're like, oh, so what's your percentage? I'm like, okay, we must fix that.
Thank you, Mpumi, so much for your insights. I think you've given us incredible nuggets in an industry that we always think is out there somewhere in the rural areas. We don't know the how of it, but I think our listeners are really going to benefit from this discussion, and especially those who are interested in the business of agriculture or small-scale farming or large-scale farming, because it's a continuum, right?
Yes.
You may be a small scaler today, but in future, you become a large-scale farmer. In terms of the UN Global Compact, we exist here to support you, to equip you with the tools and the guidance material to enable you to become a sustainable business. And on that note, I'd like to thank you once again for being here.
Thank you so much.
Until next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.